Hit that like button if you believe that sometimes you need to be broken wide open to find what was always inside you. This isn't a story about finding a pile of cash. It's about finding a weapon built just for you by someone who walked the path before you. Stay until the end, because the final message from my grandmother still gives me hope and strength. My name is Sophia. For 22 years, I was Mrs. Elena Jacobs, the wife of Marcus Jacobs, the brilliant, ruthless corporate lawyer. My life was a performance of polished marble and perfect dinner parties. I was the supporting character in his story. I curated his life, managed his social calendar, and slowly, methodically, let my own ambitions wither and die. Then, at 48, he found a newer, shinier model, a 20-something associate who didn't have laugh lines or the quiet disappointment of a life deferred. The divorce wasn't a battle. It was an annihilation. Marcus was a master of the law, and he used every weapon in his arsenal. He hid assets, devalued my contributions, and painted me as a pampered, idle socialite who deserved nothing. The judge, an old friend of his, agreed. I lost the house, the cars, the investments, and my share of his firm. I was left with a small, temporary alimony payment and a suitcase of clothes that no longer fit the life I had to live. My identity, so carefully tied to his, was stripped away. I became a nobody. The only thing he didn't fight me for was my grandmother's old cabin in the remote pine forests of Washington state. He called it a rotting money pit, a sentimental liability. To me, it was the final, crushing symbol of my worthlessness. Have you ever had a moment where you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back? Where the life you built just vanished? Type "I see you" in the comments. You are not alone in that feeling. With nowhere else to go, I drove to the cabin. The journey was a funeral procession for my old life. When I arrived, it was worse than I remembered. The roof sagged. The porch was littered with pine needles and debris. A pane of glass was cracked. It was dark, damp, and smelled of decay and forgotten things. The first night, I built a fire in the massive stone hearth, my hands shaking from cold and despair. As I shoved a log into the grate, I dislodged a loose stone. It clattered onto the hearth, revealing a dark, hollow space behind it. My heart, which I thought was numb, gave a feeble thud. Curiosity, a feeling I hadn't felt in years, flickered inside me. I reached into the cavity, my fingers brushing against something cold and metallic. I pulled out a long, flat, rusted metal box. It was sealed shut, but the latch broke with a groan when I pried at it with a fire poker. Inside, there was no gold, no stacks of cash. There were 3 things. 1. A stack of black and white photographs of my grandmother, Hildy, standing proudly in front of a storefront I didn't recognize. The sign read, "Hildy's Hardware and Ingenuity." 2. A bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. 3. And most importantly, a series of leather-bound journals. This was my inheritance. Dust and paper. I spent the next 3 days doing nothing but reading. And with every page, the woman I thought I knew, my sweet, cookie-baking Grandma Hildy, vanished, replaced by a stranger of formidable will and brilliance. The journals weren't a diary. They were the business ledgers, design schematics, and personal musings of a secret entrepreneur. I learned that in the 1,950 seconds, while her husband, my grandfather, worked a factory job, Hildy had built a small hardware empire from the ground up. She had a genius for understanding what women needed: tools that were lighter, with better grips, ingenious kitchen gadgets that saved time and labor, organizational systems for the home. But my grandfather was a traditional man. He was humiliated by the idea of his wife running a business. He called it unseemly. So, she ran it in secret. This cabin was her sanctuary, her workshop, and her warehouse. The storefront was in the next town over, where no one knew her. The letters were from her customers, praising her products. One read, "Dear Hildy, the Sure Grip jar opener changed my life, my arthritis," and the journals were filled with her designs. Beautiful hand-drawn schematics for products that were decades ahead of their time. A collapsible, reusable shopping bag. An ergonomic gardening tool that saved the back. A revolutionary baby bottle design. The final entry, written in a shaky hand, shattered me. My darling Henry found out. He said a woman's name is not for a patent. It is for her children. He made me close the shop. He sold the inventory and burned the signs. He said it was for my own good, to protect my reputation. But my heart, my brilliant, beating heart, he has locked in a box and thrown into the sea. I will hide these journals. Perhaps one day, a granddaughter I will never know will find them. She will know that I was here, that I built something. Tell her to be braver than I was. I wept. I wept for Hildy. I wept for myself. I saw the same story, playing out across generations. The man who dictated the limits of a woman's ambition. Have you ever uncovered a family secret that rewrote your entire history? That made you see your own struggles in a new light? Share the secret in the comments if you're comfortable. A fury began to burn in me. Hot and clean. It wasn't just for me anymore. It was for Hildy. Marcus had taken everything from me. But he had given me the one thing I needed most. A blank slate and a raging fire to prove myself. Hildy had given me the blueprint. I used the last of my alimony money not for rent but for tools. I turned the dusty cabin into a workshop just as she had. I taught myself CAD software from online tutorials, my eyes straining at the laptop screen in the flickering firelight. I found her prototypes, hidden in the cabin's rafters and under floorboards, and I started reverse engineering them for the modern world. My first project was her Sure Grip jar opener. I refined the design with modern, food-grade silicone and ergonomic principles. I used a 3D printing service to make a prototype. Then, I did the thing Marcus never thought I was capable of. I started a business. I launched a Kickstarter for Hildy's Hardware. Tools with a grip on life. I told our story. I posted pictures of her original journals next to my modern prototypes. I talked about being a woman stripped of everything, finding her purpose in her grandmother's lost legacy. The internet, bless it, responded. The campaign didn't just fund. It went viral. It was shared by major tech and design blogs. We raised over $1.2 million from thousands of backers who believed in Hildy's story and mine. About a year later, my company was thriving. I had a small team, a manufacturing partner, and our first 3 products were shipping to ecstatic customers. I was featured in a business magazine article titled, "From Divorce Payout to $1 Million Startup, The Grandmother's Secret." A week after the article published, I got an email. It was from Marcus. "Sophia," it began with no pleasantries. "I saw the article. Congratulations, I suppose. It seems there was more to you than I realized. I've been reviewing the final divorce settlement, and given the clear value of this Hildy's Hardware concept, which was undoubtedly conceived during our marriage, I believe we need to discuss my rightful share of the intellectual property. My lawyer will be in touch." I read the email 3 times. And then, I did something I hadn't done in years. I laughed. A deep, genuine belly laugh that echoed through my grandmother's cabin. He hadn't changed. He saw my success not as my achievement, but as an asset he had missed. A bill he could still collect. I didn't forward it to my lawyer. I wrote a reply myself. It was short. Marcus, you are correct that the concept was conceived during a marriage. But not ours. It was conceived by Hildy Peterson during her marriage to my grandfather. He, like you, tried to claim it as his own. He failed. The only thing you are entitled to is the bill for the new roof on this rotting money pit. I've taken the liberty of deducting it from the alimony payment you so generously provided. Consider the account settled. Regards, Sophia Peterson. I've gone back to my maiden name. I hit send. There was no lawsuit. He had no leg to stand on. And he knew it. The last thread tying me to that life was snipped. I still live in the cabin, though it's now beautifully restored, with a large, sunlit workshop addition. Hildy's journals sit on a stand on my desk. Every product we launch bears a small embossed logo, a tiny HP, for Hildy Peterson. The money is wonderful. The freedom is divine. But the real inheritance was never the cabin or the potential of the business. The real inheritance was the voice of my grandmother, traveling across 50 years, handing me the keys to my own life. She taught me that my ambition was not a flaw to be managed, but a legacy to be honored. She was my foundation. And on that foundation, I have built a fortress. So, that's the story of how I had to lose everything to find myself. And now, I have a question for all of you, and it's the most important one I'll ever ask. What is the Hildy's journal in your life? What is that hidden talent? That quiet dream? That secret skill you've been keeping in a box, waiting for the right time? I want you to write it down in the comments right now. Speak it into existence. Your future self is waiting for you to be brave. If this story inspired you to think about your own legacy, share this video with someone who needs a push. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about finding strength in the broken places. Remember, your greatest power is often hidden in the last place you'd ever think to look.